Now we move on to the next passage. So the directions are the same and this is the first para. According to the French philosopher Jean Baudrillard, commodities available for consumption are not inherently negative things. Baudrillard tried to interpret consumption in modern societies by engaging with the cargo myth, prevalent among the indigenous Melanesian people living in the South Pacific. So, the Melanesian people is a community or group of people, a race, a tribe living in this part of the world in the South Pacific. The Melanesians did not know what aeroplanes were. However, they saw that these winged entities descended from the air for white people and appeared to make them happy. They also noted that aeroplanes never descended for the Melanesian people. Okay, so go back to the first part again. According to the French philosopher, who is it? Jean Baudrillard, that's how the French pronunciation goes. Commodities available for consumption are not inherently negative things. Okay, and the author tells us that Baudrillard tried to interpret, try to understand consumption in modern societies by engaging what he called the cargo myth. And what was this? This myth was something that the Melanesian people believed in. Indigenous means local or native. And what is it? Of course, is given over here regarding aeroplanes. Now, the Melanesian natives noted that the white people had placed objects similar to the aeroplane on the ground. They concluded that these objects were attracting the aeroplanes in the air and bringing them to the ground. Through a magical process, the aeroplanes were bringing plenty to the white people and making them happy. So, this was what they interpreted or concluded. The Melanesian people concluded that they would need to place objects that simulated the aeroplane on the ground and attract them from the air. Baudrillard believes that the cargo myth holds an important analogy for the ways in which consumers engage with objects of consumption. So, this is an analogy, and now what happens next we will read in the next paragraph. According to Baudrillard, the modern consumer sets in place a whole array of sham objects. Sham means something that is fake or false, of characteristic signs of happiness, and then waits for happiness to alight. That's exactly in line with what the author mentions as an example of aeroplane and cargo descending, and then these entities making white people happy according to the Melanesian people. For instance, modern consumers believe that they will get happiness if they buy the latest available version of a mobile phone or automobile. However, consumption does not usually lead to happiness. So, the belief is something, or the assumption is based on something, but then it does not necessarily translate to reality. While consumers should ideally be blaming their heightened expectations for their lack of happiness, they blame the commodity instead. Okay, so that is very human and very natural, that when consumers do not derive the kind of happiness they expected the commodity that they have purchased to bring them, then instead of blaming it on the kind of expectations they had from the commodity, they blame the commodity for not giving them the happiness that they needed or they thought they would get. They feel that they should have waited for the next version of a mobile phone or automobile before buying the one they did. The version they brought is somehow inferior and therefore it cannot make them happy. So, this is how we justify not being happy. Baudrillard argued that consumers have replaced a real happiness with signs of happiness. This results in the endless deferment of the arrival of total happiness. Deferment means postponement, pushing it away. So, endless postponement of the arrival of total happiness, because we think that this could not give us the happiness we were looking for or we expected it to. So, there is something wrong with the product itself and let's wait for something more, and when that does not give us what we expected it would, then we blame it and then go in search for something else, and this process continues. Okay. In Baudrillard's words, In everyday practice, the blessings of consumption are not experienced as resulting from work or from a production process. They are experienced as a miracle. Modern consumers view consumption in the same magical way as the Melanesian people viewed the aeroplanes in the cargo myth. So, that is how he connects it. Television commercials also present objects of consumption as miracles. As a result, commodities appear to be distanced from the social processes which lead to their production. In effect, objects of consumption are divorced from the reality which produces them. Okay. Now, we go to the questions. The passage was not very difficult, but then let's go through the questions and then decide whether it was really easy. Okay. So, how does Baudrillard engage with the cargo myth? How does he do that? He uses it to describe the suffering of indigenous people. Now, there is no suffering that he has used the cargo myth to describe. Okay, there is no suffering at all. He uses it as a metaphor to critique modern consumption. I would go for this, but then let's go through the remaining 3. He uses it to show that consumption is a blessing. This is again not something we can go for, because he has not used the cargo myth to show that consumption is a blessing. In fact, he says that we feel that we are getting something from a product or a commodity, but we do not derive happiness, and then we move on and then we start blaming the commodity and look for something else that could give us the happiness that we think we deserve. So, had consumption been a blessing, then we would not have felt that kind of hollowness. Okay, so this is not correct. He uses it to show that consumers should consume more serious objects. He does not use it with this intention at all. Okay. So, now at least it is clear that it is the second one, where he has used it as a metaphor to critique modern consumption. Okay. The second one is the suitable choice here. The next one, 8. What is Baudrillard's position on consumption? What is his opinion on consumption? Does he opine that it is an irrational process? It is a utilitarian process, it is an egalitarian process, or it is a positive process? Positive process it is not, and neither does this person feel so. So, we eliminate 3. Can we consider it to be a utilitarian process? That also can be eliminated easily, because he has different views on it. Okay, he has actually negative views on it, and both positive and utilitarian are in some sense positive. Now, can we consider it to be an egalitarian process, where equality is advocated, or what it professes it is equality? That also cannot be considered relevant. So, it is an irrational process is something we can understand as suitable. Why? Because of how he has explained it. Okay, we desire something and then we go for it, we buy it. We expect it to give us happiness. When it does not, we blame it for not giving us what we expected, and instead of blaming our increased expectations for this, we go for something else in the hope that it will give us the happiness we are looking for, and this becomes something we keep following and we keep going in circles, but we never get the kind of happiness we think we should. So, it is absolutely illogical, irrational, and therefore, it was not a difficult answer to arrive at if you have been able to interpret the paragraphs properly. Okay, so, it is 1 for question number 8. Question number 9. Which of the following is an argument made by Baudrillard? Television commercials are at the heart of unhappiness experienced by consumers. Now, what does he say? He says that television commercials also present objects of consumption as miracles. Now, this does not imply that they are what? They are at the heart of unhappiness experienced by consumers. So, we can discard this. Can we say it is the second one? Production and consumption are magical processes. is this an argument that he makes? Back again, modern consumers view consumption in the same magical way as Melanesian people viewed the aeroplanes in the cargo myth. In his view, in his words, in everyday practice, the blessings of consumption are not experienced as resulting from work or from a production process, they are experienced as a miracle. Okay, and then what does he say? Commodities appear to be distant from the social processes which lead to their production, and objects of consumption are divorced from the reality which produces them. So, whatever we consume are very far away from the reality which produces that kind of desire or that consumption. So, production and consumption are magical processes is also something we can eliminate. Melanesian people coped with the inequality of colonialism by creating myths. Now, this is not relevant at all, it does not even address the question asked. Consumers value science more than the real. That's what has also been stated. Where has it been stated? Here. Okay. The author has mentioned that the version they bought is somehow inferior and therefore, okay, the result is endless deferment. Yeah, here, look at this part. Okay. They feel that they should have waited for the next version of a mobile phone or automobile before buying the one they did, because this what they purchased did not give them happiness. The version they bought is somehow inferior and therefore cannot make them happy. Baudrillard argues that consumers have replaced real happiness with signs of happiness. This results in the endless deferment of arrival of total happiness. Okay. So, where were we? Consumers value signs more than the real. Okay. Not very difficult. A little back and forth and you would have got it. What is Baudrillard's position on total happiness? We just came out of that part. Can it be one? It prioritizes production over consumption. It comes with patience and waiting. It results from ethical consumption, or it is perpetually delayed. This results in the endless deferment of the arrival of total happiness. So, total happiness does not come to us. We keep on pushing it away and postponing it. So, this should make the fourth one relevant. It is perpetually delayed. Postpone or defer means to delay something. So, it is 4, and because we know 4 is logically correct and it can also be checked with the part that I pointed out to you just now, we can eliminate the others. Fine. Question number 11. How can consumption be made more satisfying? By banning television commercials that promise real happiness, by rejecting colonialism and all other forms of economic oppression, by recognizing that commodities produce miraculous change, or by understanding the connection between production and consumption. Now, by banning television commercials, can consumption be made more satisfying? There is no actual connection. Okay, so this is illogical. By rejecting colonialism and all other forms of social oppression. Now, the author has mentioned white people, and we can of course relate this with colonialism, but the author in this paragraph, in this passage, is referring to a past situation. So, consumption can be made more satisfying by rejecting colonialism and all other forms of economic oppression doesn't sound to be rational for the modern times or for all times. So, it cannot be something that can be considered relevant for all times. This is only suitable for something which for a condition that prevailed at a particular point in the past. By recognizing that commodities produce miraculous change, well, the author has argued against it. So, this goes. By understanding the connection between production and consumption. That is also something that he mentioned or pointed out in the, I think, the last paragraph, and so this is correct. Let me just go back to that part so that you understand it. So, In effect, objects of consumption are divorced from the reality which produces them. So, if objects of consumption, the way we use them, consume them, and what kind of happiness we expect from them which we do not get, this makes objects of consumption very, very different or opposed from the reality that produces them. If we connect them, then what can we expect? We can expect some satisfaction or happiness from consuming them. So, when we understand the connection, the link between production and consumers, then this will give us the satisfaction that these objects of consumption are intended for. Question number 12. Why are consumers unhappy with commodities that they have just bought? This should not be very difficult, because the author says that we have heightened expectations of them. I hope you remember the phrase that he used, the adjective that he used to describe expectations: heightened, hyper increased expectations from those commodities, because we feel they will give us the kind of happiness that we seek from them, and when we do not get that kind of happiness, we blame the commodity for it and we look for something which is better or an improved or more advanced version of it, and we feel that this particular commodity will probably give us what we were looking for. So, why are consumers unhappy with commodities that they have just bought? If we keep this in mind, we will be able to answer this question accurately. Is it because they focus on improved functionality of commodities? Well, that's not the case, because the law of diminishing marginal commodities comes into play. Is it because they have used it and after using it, getting it and using it, they lose interest in it, which is what in some simple sense is how the law of diminishing marginal utility is described. We have of course commodities mentioned here, but that's not what the author has implied. So, we eliminate this. Is it because television commercials do not create enough hype about commodities? This is not it. It is 4. Read and you will get it. Because they have exaggerated expectations of commodities. Okay. So, this matches with heightened expectations, and this becomes the answer for this question.